我非常高兴在这儿和非常thank you very much for
Thank
the
you.
kind introduction. I will now talk in English, okay? But I'm really delighted and thank you very much for asking me to come here today. Let me check that I can use this. Okay. Shall we start with you doing some work? Can we start with you doing some work? Is that okay? Okay. I want everybody to look at me, okay? Look at me and say the words I am saying, okay? Are you ready? I heard somebody. What did you say? What word was it? Shout. Again. Very good. And again. And very good. Okay. So this little activity can be used to remind children of words that they have learnt in an earlier lesson. So what are we practicing here? What are they looking at? They're looking at my mouth, aren't they? Why is it important to look at someone's mouth, okay, when we're thinking about words? Why is it important to pay attention to the shape of your mouth? It's important because the shape of the mouth helps us make the sounds, particularly the vowel sounds. Ah. Look at my mouth. Ah. Ah. Eh. Eh. Oh. Oh. Eh. Eh. Ah. Ah. You can see the shape of the mouth changes with each vowel sound. Doing this game or activity with our students will help them pay attention to the shape that our mouth makes when we make the sounds. Okay? So I might start out the lesson in this way. But then the next thing is to ask the students to practice it together. So can you practice with the person sitting next to you? Whisper a word, being careful with the shape of your mouth, and your partner must say the word, okay? Can you do it? Practice in pairs. You practice. Practice in pairs. Okay, I won't make you practice for too long, okay? But this is just an idea that you can use at the beginning of your lessons to remind children of the words they have learnt before and how to pronounce them. This is also very important for phonics, because with phonics, we are not just teaching reading, we are also working on pronunciation. It's a really good way to help your students pronounce words correctly, okay? So phonics is about listening to sounds and about matching sounds with letters and using that to help you read. Okay, so I had, oh, the wrong way. I had a lovely introduction. Thank you very much for the introduction. Yes, I've spent many years, I think now I've been teaching for over 40 years. I don't like to remind myself, but I've been teaching for more than 40 years now. Teaching and writing and working with teachers at universities and at colleges. At the moment, I'm working for Chaoyang District in Beijing, and I work as an advisor for education, generally, English teaching, but also other subjects as well. But I'm going to retire soon, and when I retire, I am going to spend a lot of time on phonics, because phonics is something that I am very, very interested in. And I think phonics is something that makes our students free to learn more. It gives them skills to read, and this is so important for our learners, really important. The freedom to learn independently. Okay, so I've done my warmer. I've got it the wrong way round again. I'm sorry about that. Okay, there are two types of phonics. And there are even more types of phonics that people are using here in China. But outside in the West, there are two main types of phonics. One is called analytic phonics, and it's been going on for around 400 years. So phonics is not new. Phonics is actually very old as a method for learning to teach or for learning reading. What is new, though, is synthetic phonics. Synthetic phonics has been popular since the 1990s. And it's synthetic phonics which I am very, very interested in. The analytic phonics is taught by teaching the first sound in a syllable and then a rhyme that goes with that to make a word. So you may see some books available on the market which actually use that method. It's called onset and rhyme, as you can see up here. But that is analytic phonics. It is not synthetic phonics. So what I'm going to talk to you about today is synthetic phonics. It's called synthetic because it takes the separate sounds and it joins them together. So it synthesizes. It puts something together, okay? That's why it's called synthetic phonics. Memory. Okay, Pathway Phonics is a synthetics program. There are really 4 steps to teaching using this program. The first step is to teach sounds. So the first focus for the learners is the sound, okay? And matching the sound to the letter. The next step is learning how to blend the sounds together to make words. The next step is learning some sight words. I'll talk about them later, but these sight words are words that are difficult to learn because they don't fit patterns. They don't fit normal spelling patterns. So we need to learn those words. But there are only between 70 and 100 of those that we really need to learn. The point about synthetic phonics is we are not teaching children to learn the words by heart. We are teaching children a skill so that they can work out how to say the words themselves. as a university teacher in China, you know, I was a university teacher at Guangwai and at Shanghai, okay? And even at those universities, some students could not read words aloud if they had not learnt them, okay? So it stopped them being good readers. If you use a phonics program, you can solve that problem. So you can make your students free to read for themselves. So we're giving them a skill so that they can read independently. Okay, you've seen Pathway Phonics. You've seen a lesson, Bad Boy Ben, this morning. And I'm actually going to be using this as an example as well. So it's something that you already know a bit about. So the learners need to be introduced to the sounds that they are going to learn in the lesson. They need to learn to sound words out first. So they learn this skill of sounding out before they do anything else with the word. And then they need to blend the sounds, and then they will need the sight words using a look and say method. Okay, in series 1 of Pathway Phonics, the learners are introduced to these sounds. A, B, O, G, E, R, A, S, and T. So you'll notice that I am not saying the letters. This is really important. At the beginning, you shouldn't be teaching the learners the names of the sounds. You should be using the sounds, okay? I know many learners already know the alphabet, but they are also learning the alphabet in pinyin, yeah? Forget that at the beginning. Focus instead on the sounds. This is going to be the most important thing for them. So we focus on the sounds, not the names of the letters. It will be introduced later, though, because it is important. Okay, now, I'm not sure, I haven't got a light, so I'm going to point, okay? And so this is an example of how you start off with your learners. So if I point, let me hear you louder. Okay, so you see, point and say is a really easy activity to do with your students. Simply have letters and get them to tell you what the letters are or what the sounds are for those letters, okay? As always, don't do it with just the teacher, okay? I would ask a student to come up and play at being the teacher. And after that, do it as a pair work activity. Ask the students to write down the letters, okay? And then they can point and say with each other. So here they are practicing all of the sounds. Okay, next one. I'm going to say some words. Please put up your hand if you hear the letter I give you. So everybody here, everybody over here, you are group number 1. You're going to listen for B, okay? Everybody this side of the camera, you are group 2. You are listening for R, okay? Everybody here, you are listening for O. And over here, you are listening for S, okay? Can I hear, who is listening for O? Who is listening for S? Who's listening for B? And who is listening for R? You are good. Okay, fantastic. Right, so listen for the words. Box. Box. Okay, so two groups, B and O. It was X, not S. Okay, it was X, not S. but you were listening. You were listening. Well done. Okay. Rubber. Very good. Very good. So that should have been Group R, Group 3, Group 2, and Group 1. Okay. Spin. Well done. So as you can see, you can use any words. They don't need to be words that the students know. The purpose is simply to train them to hear sounds in words. This is the important thing, to recognize the sounds in words. Another variation on this. Okay, Group 1, this time you're listening for T. Group 2, you're listening for A. Group 3 is listening for H. And Group 4 is listening for D. Okay, are you ready? Baby, Tim, and Ted are happy. But Gus is sad. He's hungry. Okay, let's have a look. T. What words were there? Do you remember? Let's do it again. Baby, Tim, and Ted. Okay, we had our T sounds there. Group 2. Let's just look at Group 2. Where are you? Group 2? Okay, listen again. Baby, Tim, and Ted are, listen again, are. It's not a, it's are. Okay, we're not looking for the letters. We're listening for the sound. Okay? This is really important because in English, there is not a match between one letter and one sound. And we are focusing on the sounds and not the letters. Okay? So at this point, we're focusing on the sounds. Okay. Group 3. Baby, Tim, and Ted are hungry. But Gus is sad. He's hungry. Okay. Sorry, I misread it. Should have been happy. Okay, very good. And D. Where are the D's? Baby, Tim, and Ted. Ted, yeah, are happy. But Gus is sad. Okay. This is another important point. In synthetic phonics, we are not just focusing on the first sound. We are focusing on the sound wherever it is in a word. Okay? It can be the beginning, the middle, or the end. Okay? It doesn't matter. We are focusing on the children learning the sounds. Okay? So here we are recognizing all the sounds. After they've learnt some sounds, then the learners can blend the sounds. So here the teacher points to a word, The learners then blend, okay? Then, as before, learners can do it with learners as pair work. Okay, so as we did before, very good. Or, okay. I use this for blending. So as a signal to the learners that now I want you to blend the sounds that you've sounded out. I think you noticed today how successful the children were at doing it. It doesn't take a lot. And in fact, in the UK, 90% of children learn to read using synthetic phonics. 90%. And they normally have learned to read by sounding and blending by the time they are 4 years old. It's done kindergarten level, okay? So, and it's very successful, not just with native speaker children, but also with children who speak a second language. I was lucky enough to visit a school in Beijing where they're using synthetic phonics, and the children in grade 4, all Chinese, were able to read by themselves after a semester of learning all of the sounds. So it really works. Another example here. I'm thinking of something. I'll sound it out. You tell me. B, I, N. Okay. B, A, S. Okay. So here you can see the teachers sounding, the students blending. And then you do it with students as doing it as well, playing the game. Another blending activity. Students must sound it out and then blend, okay? So students choose a word, sound it out, and then put it together before the teacher says the word, okay? So the children must sound it and blend it together to read it themselves. So no saying of the word by the teacher first. And I think you can see, if you give them the sounds accurately to start with, children pronounce the words correctly. I noticed during the lesson when children were sounding out and blending, for example, bat, their pronunciation was really good. But once they started just reading it, they said batter, which is a typical Chinese learner error of adding the sound to a final consonant, okay? And we can avoid that by focusing a lot on the sounds and on blending activities at the beginning, before we actually say the words themselves. No. Is that right? Okay, again, we can do it with pictures. So it's the same idea. You give the learners pictures, they pick something in the picture and sound it out and say the word. Sight words. I mentioned that we need to teach our learners sight words. These are words that don't fit a spelling pattern. So you have to make sure that children learn these. But there are not too many of them, fortunately. Probably in the first year, there are only going to be about 50 of them that the learners need to use. Pathway phonics, these sounds are clear. These words are clear. So they're in the syllabus, so you will know what those words are. Ways of teaching it. Well, you can use flashcards, do a presentation, then you can play games, and I've got some examples of these for you to look at. So simply, these are the words that you'll find in the first couple of stories. So here, the, everyone, the, you can see the here, okay? So if it followed the spelling pattern, it would be there, but it doesn't, okay? And our next one, was. If it followed the spelling pattern, it would be was, and it isn't. You would be yo, and it isn't. Of. Two ways of pronouncing of, aren't there? Of and of, yes. So we have two ways there, but again, it's a v sound and not a f sound. Okay, so it doesn't follow the pattern. Or sometimes a, yeah, or a. And this is not are, it's not are, it's are. So all of these we need to teach our students, and we need to, one of the methods that I use is look, cover, write, check. Look, cover, write, check. Okay? And this is a standard way of getting children to learn the spellings of sight words. Okay. Again, we can do practice with point and say. So I can point to one and get our learners to say it. Okay, so we can do that kind of activity as we did with the sounds. Okay? Or can you all have a look? See if you can remember all of the sound, all of the words that are here. Can you remember them all? Let's see how good your memory is. Which one is missing? Well done. Oh, it's missing. Okay, this game is called Kim's Game. It's a good memory game. It comes from a storybook. Do you know the story Jungle Book? Have you seen Jungle Book? The film, the movie? Disney Jungle Book? Yeah? Well, the original was a story written by Rudyard Kipling. And the character, the boy, Mowgli, I think, is Kim, okay, in the original story. And this is a game that Kim played. And this is why we call it Kim's Game. Okay, so Kim's Game, where you take something away and the learners have to remember which one it was. You could also play bingo. Do you know bingo? Put up your hand if you know how to play bingo. Say, not many people know how to play bingo. Okay, a game like bingo, all of your students, or maybe in a group, one group, will have a bingo card. And they'll have the words on the card. The teacher or a leader from the class will say words. If it's on their card, they cover it up or they cross it out. When they've crossed out all of the words, they put up their hand, they can win. Okay? Now, we can't do it because you don't have it in front of you, but we can play the game. When I've said all the words on the bingo card, put up your hand, okay? Are you ready? Was. They. Were. You. Of. And. Are. It's well done, well done. Okay, we've had them all. Okay, so this is how you play bingo. Bingo is another way of getting our learners to remember these sight words. Okay, when we use the book, can I just check how much longer I have? How much longer do I have? A few more minutes. Okay, so when we're using the books, you saw the teachers today using the books very well, but there are also activities in the books that you can use as well. You can use them to help learners work on sounds. You can get them to work on their blends. You can get them to do independent reading. And you can also, as the final step, get them to think about meaning. So I mentioned earlier that these are separate sounds that are in the series. We start off in series 1 with these sounds. They didn't have to be these sounds. They could have been other sounds. Different phonics systems put the sounds in a different order. But I decided that it would be useful to have the simple vowel sounds in the early series because they're very useful for the learners. In series 2, we will introduce more common sounds. But do notice that S and R are in series 1 because they're very, very frequent sounds. D will be in the second series because that's also a frequent sound. Series 3 will include digraphs. These are very important in English. They are where 2 letters are used to make one sound. So examples of this would be ch, sh, the, okay? But also sounds like oo, oo, is as in food, oo, and as in book, as in book, okay? So these are where 2 letters in English match with one sound, okay? It's not quite the same thing as a diphthong, okay? Diphthong is where we have 2 sounds, okay, that go together, so so we don't have to worry about that in phonics. Instead, what we're concerned with is the digraphs. Okay, I was in Chinese. Let me say this. I don't know if I can say this correctly. Bye bye. Bye bye. Yeah. Is one sound. I is another sound. Yeah. Bye bye. So they are 2 different sounds, but one is a digraph and one is a single sound, single letter. Okay, but they are digraphs. I'm not totally sure about this because it's pinyin, which is not my specialization, but I think it shows you, it gives you an example of what they are. The other thing that will be included in number 3, in series number 3, is consonant clusters, which should be learned as one sound. So these are sounds like fl, tr, qu, okay? So it's 2 consonant sounds together, or sometimes even 3, as in screen, scr, yeah? So in English, we have consonantal clusters with 2 or 3 consonants together. And you just don't have that in Chinese. You don't have that in Chinese. So it could be thought of as something difficult. But actually, if you're using phonics to teach children, they don't think it's difficult. It's just yet something else that they need to learn. Okay? So if we start off with this very positive attitude about it being just something else they are going to learn, then it's easier for them. Series 4 will include more digraphs, but it will also include more complex words made up of multiple syllables, because at later stages, children need to break down words into separate bits and sound and blend each part to put them together. So, in this early stage of phonics, in grade 1 and grade 2, we are providing our learners with a really important skill so that they can read independently. After that, this is when teaching needs to focus much more on meaning. However, we do some meaning work earlier on while we're teaching phonics, but the main focus is on the sounds and reading independently. Okay? To help them read independently, we give them interesting and attractive stories. We give images which help them work out the meaning of words. So they don't have to worry about the meaning. They can tell what it means because of the pictures. Yeah, I think you can see. I'm very, very happy to work with this illustrator because I think she makes memorable images so that the children will find it much, much easier to understand the stories. They're relevant to the learner's own experience. I don't know if you noticed, but in the pictures, the buns are actually baozi. They are not Western buns. They are Chinese buns, because most children will only ever use that word to describe Chinese buns. They won't use it to describe buns in America or in Britain. And anyway, buns in America and buns in Britain are different, okay? So the pictures actually show what a Chinese bun looks like. So they're relevant to the learner's own experience as learners. I was really, when I first came to China, I was really privileged to do some work with a professor called Li Xiaojiu in Guangdong. She was the first, well, one of the first Chinese professors to introduce communicative language learning here to China. And this was something very important to her, that the language that students learn should be authentic to their own experience, meaningful to them, not just something somewhere else that they didn't know much about. They're age appropriate. The materials have been written so that they are right for grade 1 and grade 2. Some phonics materials are really written at a much higher level, okay? Not really appropriate for grade 1 and grade 2, or even too low. And the activities in the textbook are really phonics focused. They will ask students to do activities pointing and saying as pair work. They will be asked to read through the text and find words, maybe words that have that begin with a sound, or words that end with a sound. I like to get students to do it as races. So if students are in groups, they have a race to see who can find all the words that start with, say, t first. Okay? So activities like that help the students and focus them on phonics. When we move on to meaning, we use these attractive images to help students understand it. We also, there are opportunities for teachers to give learners WH questions based on the text. WH questions actually form the basis of reading comprehension all the way through to university study. Learners need to respond to these kinds of questions, but they also need to make the questions themselves of texts. And doing this is actually called scaffolding. So it's scaffolding comprehension, providing the steps for learners to create for themselves to understand the meaning of a text. So it's very valuable that teachers have the opportunity or try using this strategy to help learners understand the meaning of text. So in summary, the series has been written to help learners at the very early stages of learning English to become English readers, to be able to read for themselves, not to wait for the teacher to read first and follow what the teacher has read. The children will read first, independently. The images give the context so they can understand the meaning, and the activities will consolidate, will put together the knowledge that they have developed through the lessons and through the reading about the sounds of English. So, thank you very much. I'm honored to have been here and to take part in this, and I hope that it's been useful.